Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. Is a topic that we have discussed certainly quite a bit here on the Aaron Torres Pod YouTube channel. That is the recruitment of five-star forward Caleb Wilson. So we've done 2 or 3 segments on this kid over the course of the last month or so. But I think for people who do not know, and I know you know, 5-star player, one of the top uncommitted players in the high school class of 2025. And it's been an interesting couple weeks in his recruitment. Probably about a month or so ago, cut his list down to 5. At the time, that 5 was North Carolina, Kentucky, Ohio State, Tennessee, and Central Florida, UCF. Then he cut UCF and Tennessee. Final 3 a few days ago became Ohio State, North Carolina, and Kentucky. Well, I bring it up because Caleb Wilson is set to commit on Thursday. And for the first time, I have to admit, I got to take an L. I think I was probably wrong on this one. As you know, listen, as of a week ago, I was still saying I think Kentucky has a slight lead. But let's talk about it because I think over the last week or so, Carolina has taken control. And I think on Thursday, when we're talking about this commitment, I do think Caleb Wilson, no relation to Caleb Williams that I know of, will be a North Carolina Tar Heel. So first of all, Caleb Wilson, the player, I've talked about quite a bit. And I want to talk about what's changed, by the way. I'm going to talk about all of it in a minute. But the player I like, and the player I've explained time and time again, who he is, what he does well, all that. But he's been basically identified as one of the best players in this class dating back to his sophomore year. Had a great sophomore year. I think the junior year was kind of up and down. But I bring it up because really the last, I think, let's do some math here, 9 months or so, I think has changed his trajectory in a totally positive way. We talked about it, but he played with the Boozer twins, Cam and Caden Boozer, on the Nike circuit, played at Peach Jam with them. They won a Peach Jam championship. And I think he just showed everything that you kind of want from the new age, big forward in basketball, right? On certain nights, he was the star, 20 points, 10 boards, whatever it would be, 22-8, 22-7, whatever. But he's also playing with an All-American Cam Boozer, who, of course, I think everybody knows, but he's going to Duke next year following his father's footsteps, along with his twin brother, Caden Boozer. And, there were nights where Caleb Wilson was a defensive stopper, a wing stopper, a guy that would get you 12 boards and 6 points, but he just showed he can play a lot of different styles. Well, he goes into his senior year, and I think he's, from what I've seen, I haven't seen him much because, I'm covering college basketball here. I don't have a ton of time to go to high school games. But from what I've seen, it feels like he is playing with a different level and a different degree of confidence. Much more confident, much more assertive. He's playing high school ball kind of where he's the star in Atlanta, and he is absolutely playing like a stud here over the last probably 2-3 months since the high school basketball season started. Now, in terms of the recruitment, like I said, over the last couple weeks, I have said that I believed Kentucky is in the lead. I still believed it as of the end of or beginning of last week. But I think as time has gone on, I'm talking to my people in the industry, I'm asking questions, and I was hesitant to kind of flip that unofficial crystal ball to North Carolina, but I'm going to go ahead and do it. My final prediction is, in fact, that he ends up at UNC. And listen, from the UNC perspective, we'll talk about a couple different things. One, first of all, he always liked UNC. So my big thing was about the NIL component of it, which we'll talk about in a minute. But I did say all along, I thought UNC was doing a good job recruiting him. Remember, in the fall, he took both an unofficial and official visit. And so basically, if you're visiting a campus twice in a 1-month, 6-week, 2-month period, whatever it was, like he obviously liked the place. Carolina has a ton to sell. And my big concerns were kind of NIL related. I've said it before. I'll say it again. Carolina as an athletic department, I think they have prioritized football over the last probably 6 to 8 months. Basically realizing, hey, the future of college athletics is in the sport of football, and we need to make sure that our football program is where it needs to be, and we need to put our resources and allocate more resources into that program. That's why they hired Bill Belichick. It's why they fired Mac Brown. And I've said it consistently. It's not they hate Hubert Davis thing. I know Hubert Davis just took another loss the other day, but I think it's really realistically more than that. It's just hey, we have to, we have to prepare for the future of college football. We have to make sure our football program is attractive, because at some point the ACC is going to break up. At some point, we're going to need to find another home. And we can't just bank on we're North Carolina, we're state school, we're great academic school, whatever. We have to have a product on the football field that matters. And so I've kind of questioned the NIL stuff. But over the last couple of days, I think what's kind of struck me is a few things. One, he always liked the school, like I said. Two, the NIL situation is a little fluid in a positive way, because I think what I underestimated is we have to remember we're going towards revenue sharing in a couple months. For people who don't follow this nerdy stuff, basically as of late April of this year of 2025, schools will be able to pay players directly. And so what's kind of interesting, and I think we saw this a lot in football, is basically the collectives raised all this money, and that's where you were getting paid from before, but also now the schools can pay directly as well. And so with football, what we've seen a lot of in this last portal cycle is you'll sign a deal with the collective will pay you a bunch of money up front, and then the school will take over from there. In other words, listen, I don't have any exact details, but, if you wanted to start, like let me even give you an example. There was a report that the star quarterback from Tulane that committed to Duke football. Yes, I'm talking Duke football, Darian Mensah. There was a report that he's going to get $5 million from Duke over the course of the next year. And basically, Duke is going to front load some stuff, give him some money through the collective. And then at that point, after they front load everything, they are going to be able to then pay him directly through the school. And so for North Carolina, I think what they're sitting there saying is, well, we could get you a little bit more because we'll take some from the collective. We'll take care of you up front. I would assume they'll probably start paying him as soon as he signs his letter of intent in late March, early April, whenever that signing period begins. And then the school will take over from there. So we can get you more on the front end from the collective, and then the school will take over on the back end. So that's a lot of what's happening across college sports. And I talked to 2 or 3 people on Monday morning, like, am I missing something? And that was the general sentiment, is there's a lot of money these days between the collectives. There's a lot of money these days between the schools now paying. And what virtually every school in America, I'm positive of this, everybody's basically double dipping. They're like, we're going to pay you through the collective as much as we can up front, and then we're going to let the school take over. And the school obviously has limitations. Certain amount has to go to certain this, certain that. The collective doesn't have any rules. Collective doesn't have any limitations. So like with AJ DeBonsa at BYU, it's like, I'm just using them as an example, but the collective could pay AJ DeBonsa $5 million, and then he just gets what everybody else is getting on the basketball team from the collective. I'm just using that as an example. I'm not saying that's happening, but what I am saying is happening is in both football and basketball, basically all of these programs are double dipping, and part of you are getting paid by the collective. And then once the revenue sharing happens in April, now all of a sudden you're getting paid by the school as well. And so when I look at it, I do think that was probably a big factor. They were able to put together a little bit more money than maybe I anticipated. Listen, Caleb Wilson has always liked that school. I think the other thing too, he's going to be a star, right? Is that, I think the relationships with the Kentucky guys, I thought was maybe a little bit more important than it was. I still think it's important. Like, I think a Caden Lewis was still, the Kentucky commit was still tweeting at him as of a few days ago. But at the same time, I think, the money probably talks a little bit. I think Kentucky's like, we'll allocate our NIL resources in other places. And I think Caleb Wilson's like, I can go there and be a star, because as we talked about the other day, Ian Jackson's probably going pro after this year. Drake Powell's probably going pro after this year. RJ Davis graduates. Elliot Cadeau will probably be back, but there will be plenty of shots to go around for Caleb Wilson. So that to me is the latest. I do think it's probably going to be North Carolina. We'll have full reaction when it happens, but really, really, really good player. Really excited. I think it'll be big for listen, I'll say this. Carolina kind of needs this. We did the whole Hubert Davis segment on Saturday after they lost to Stanford. They lost again on Tuesday night at Wake Forest. And Hubert Davis right now needs some positive, energy right now, because right now they're 12-8. I think they're on the verge of potentially missing the NCAA tournament for a second time in 3 years. Caleb Wilson might be the piece that ends up saving his job if he can close this deal, because right now there ain't a lot of positivity around North Carolina. But I don't want to be negative. I want to give credit where it's due. Carolina, like I said, I do believe, and maybe I'm dead wrong. I don't think I am. I believe that Kentucky led for the majority of this recruitment. I think he always liked Carolina, and I think Carolina has made up ground.